All right, all right. Welcome to Mount Polumbus Speaks here. Quick scouting report on the Kansas City Chiefs versus Denver Broncos game tomorrow at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Obviously, this is a huge game for the Denver Broncos going up against an undefeated team. They are playing in Arrowhead, and a few basics on the game. Should be pretty good weather, 63 degrees with 10-mile-per-hour winds. However, the weather today in Kansas City is not good. It's rainy, bad conditions. There's a game being played between the University of Kansas and somebody else. Kansas is playing their home games at Arrowhead this year because their stadium's getting renovated. So although the weather tomorrow is supposed to be pretty decent, that field is in all likelihood going to be in bad shape based off the college football game that is being played today. The line on this game is currently at 7.5. I've seen it as high as 8.5 when the week began. So that means that some bettors out there are taking the Broncos. When that line is moving down, that means the bettors are actually taking the spread with the Denver Broncos, and it has moved down to 7.5. That is still an enormous spread in the NFL. Anything over 7 points is borderline offensive. Vegas is telling you that you suck. That's what Vegas is telling you anytime the spread is over 7 points. So Vegas expects the Denver Broncos to get blown out in this game. And if the Broncos keep it tight, Vegas is going to be very, very nervous because it would appear that a lot of the bettors out there are actually taking the Broncos in this game. The Chiefs injury report right now, when the week began, there were about 10 players on that list. But every day that went by, it got smaller and smaller. Some guys sat out for rest. Some guys sat out for injuries. By the time you got to Friday, everybody was a full participant in practice except for Juju Smith-Schuster, who is out in this game with a hamstring injury. So they're down one wide receiver, but they brought DeAndre Hopkins in. And Hopkins will probably get a lot of action in this game, just like he did last week. Tershawn Wharton is also questionable in this game with a knee injury. Questionable does not mean out. It means it will be a game day decision. So in my experience, you go out there pre-game, like super early. You go out there with the strength conditioning coaches, you go out there with the training staff, and you go out there with your positional coach, and you move around, you see how you're feeling, and then the staff makes a decision, along with you, the player, make a decision if you're going to play in this game or not. I wish that the injury report was a bit longer. Patrick Mahomes obviously was banged up with that ankle injury after last week's game. He's got that Russell Wilson Wolverine blood, though, and apparently is ready to rock and roll against the Denver Broncos. Look, we know everything we need to know about the Kansas City Chiefs, so I'm not exactly telling you anything new here in terms of players to watch in this game. It's the same guys, right? It's Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the world right now. Although not playing like the best quarterback in the world, Mahomes is throwing a lot of interceptions this year, a little bit out of character for him. And I got Travis Kelce up here, another guy who is not at peak condition. Although the season started out very slowly for Travis Kelce, did not have a whole lot of catches when the season began. He is picking it up. In the last two games, Travis Kelce, last week against the Buccaneers, had 14 receptions for 100 yards. The week before that against the Raiders, he had 10 receptions for 90 yards. He's got 3 games this year of 80-plus yards. So not necessarily the Travis Kelce stats that we are all accustomed to, but believe me when I tell you, Travis Kelce is still dangerous. He's getting into game shape. He came in a little bit fat, a little bit overweight. He'd been on a world tour with Taylor Swift, and as the season progressed, all of a sudden he's looking more agile. He's looking like he's in better shape. And Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are starting to find their rhythm. I've also got on my players to watch DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is a recent addition to the Kansas City Chiefs. He is a trade deadline player that the Chiefs brought in, and DeAndre had a great game last week. He had 8 receptions off of 9 targets, picked up 86 yards. DeAndre Hopkins is getting up there in age at 32 years old. But for the first time in his career, he's got a quarterback. And I promise you, he is feeling rejuvenated. He is feeling fresh and feeling like he's ready to rock and roll. Chris Jones is another player that I've got on my key players to watch here. And Chris Jones is also having a little bit of a down season. He's only got 3 sacks, but we all know Chris Jones, man. The dude is an absolute animal. When the season's all said and done, he'll probably have 6 or 7 sacks, which is a lot for an interior defensive lineman. It's probably not going to be a Pro Bowl type of season for Chris Jones, but he's capable of going off for 2 or 3 sacks in any given game. Fortunately, we've got some guards here in Denver that get paid a whole lot of money for a good reason. They're pretty dang good at what they do, Quinn Miners and Ben Powers. So Quinn and Ben have got to go out there and earn their money against Chris Jones. There's plenty of other players on this Chiefs team that you got to be concerned with. Obviously, they brought in some speed in the draft, but it's not clicking the way that you traditionally think of with the Kansas City Chiefs. Me personally, I assume it's going to click. It's going to come at some point in time. So do not think for 1 second that this Chiefs team is not capable of putting up 50 points on the Denver Broncos. Fortunately, Broncos defense is pretty good, so I don't expect that to happen. All right, some key matchups in this game. Kareem Hunt is having a pretty good season for the Kansas City Chiefs. They brought Kareem Hunt back after an absence from the team. And in the last couple games, Kareem Hunt has played pretty dang good football for him. 106 yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers off 27 carries. He went for 59 the week before that, so not awesome. 78 the week before that, 102 on Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints. Kareem Hunt is also getting up there. Not as spry as he once was, but the Chiefs are relying on their running game far more than they ever have in years past. So, really big game for the Denver Broncos front seven. Fortunately, I feel great about the Broncos front seven. The Broncos defensive line is as good as it's been since the Super Bowl 50 years. And the inside linebackers, hey man, Justin Strnad. I'm proud of that dude, man. Justin Strnad had not played football on the defensive side for the Broncos in about 3 seasons. He'd been a special teams all-star, got thrust into the lineup once Alex Singleton got hurt, and he's been playing great football. We've all seen what Cody Barton's been able to do. He was named AFC Player of the Week a couple weeks ago after his big game. Actually got a fumble return for a touchdown, had 2 in the game, but one of them got called back. So I feel pretty good about this matchup between the Broncos front seven and Kareem Hunt. It sounds silly to say that you want Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. No, you don't want Patrick Mahomes doing anything. But it's a weird year, and he's not throwing the ball very effectively in comparison to years past. And most importantly, when they are throwing the ball, he is coughing that ball up to the defenses. He's had a lot of interceptions this year. So handle Kareem Hunt, put that ball in the air, cross your fingers, hope and pray that Patrick Mahomes doesn't figure it out against the Denver Broncos, and maybe he will give you another interception or 2. Another key matchup in this game, I put Pat Surtain versus DeAndre Hopkins. I easily could have put Travis Kelce on that list. I do believe that the Chiefs are going to continue to try to feature DeAndre Hopkins. Because the Chiefs have had some injuries in their wide receiver room, DeAndre Hopkins is now the primary target. He's the best wide receiver on the field for the Chiefs at this point in time. So I would imagine that Pat Surtain is probably going to trail DeAndre Hopkins quite a bit in this game. Do you think about bringing Pat Surtain down into the box, putting him one-on-one with Travis Kelce? Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that some as well. Travis Kelce is clearly a tremendous weapon. I like our inside linebackers, but they don't match up super great against Travis Kelce. I know in the Super Bowl 50 year, when we would play Rob Gronkowski, we would bring Aqib Talib down into the box and let him go one-on-one with Rob Gronkowski, because these tight ends that play like wide receivers, They are the biggest mismatch in the NFL right now. They get matched up on inside linebackers that just don't have the same speed. So maybe mix and match a little bit with Pat Surtain, put him on the outside against DeAndre Hopkins here and there on key situations, bring him down into the box, let him go one-on-one with Travis Kelce. Otherwise, I would say this. Wherever Pat Surtain is, let him go good on good, and then let's bracket the other guy. So if he's down in the box, maybe we give a double team on DeAndre Hopkins. If Pat Surtain is out there covering DeAndre Hopkins, maybe we give a double team on Travis Kelce. Make the Chiefs beat you with their non-premier targets. That's the key of the game, right? What do your opponents do well? Well, let's take that away and let's make the Chiefs beat the Denver Broncos with their non-premier weapons. Plenty of other matchups we could go through, specifically from the Kansas City Chiefs point of view, but from the Broncos point of view, those are the two that I wanted to highlight. All right, just a few things to know in this game against the Chiefs. Look, the Chiefs are very efficient on third down. They're at the top of the league in third down conversion rates right now. So that's the key to victory almost every single week, both on offense and on defense. When you're playing on defense, you got to get off the field on third down. When you're playing on offense, you got to keep the chains moving on third down. How do you win on third down? Well, you actually win on third down on first and second down. You got to make sure that you keep the Chiefs in third and long situations. If you let them go from first and 10 to second and 7, second and 7 to third and 4, well, they're going to keep those chains moving all day long. So you got to win first and second down against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are notorious for high-powered offenses. Not this year. That is not why the Chiefs are winning games this year. The Chiefs are winning football games this year. They're undefeated because they've got a great defense and a pretty good offense. Not a great offense, but a pretty good offense. The Chiefs' defense is currently ranked 5th in the NFL. That is one spot in front of this highly vaunted Denver Broncos defense, who, as of last week, going into Baltimore, was considered the number 1 defense in the league. After the Baltimore game, the Broncos defense moved from number 1 to number 6 in the overall defensive rankings. They currently sit one spot below Kansas City Chiefs. So the Broncos offense, it's going to be really, really important that you run the football well. You do not want to put yourself in long situations on third down. You do want to eat up the clock when you play the Chiefs, and you got to keep your defense fresh. So you're going up against a really, really good defense, and the Broncos don't have to score on every single possession, but I would say this. They need to get a couple first downs on every single possession, because if you don't get a first down, if you go 3 and out, you do not want our defense getting worn out physically simply because they are on the field too much. So when you go up against a great defense, you understand I might not score on every possession, but what I need to do is I need to play the field position battle. So pick up a couple first downs, get a great punt, and that could be a successful possession. When you look at these two offenses, the Denver Broncos are currently averaging 20.3 points per game, and the Kansas City Chiefs are averaging 25.4 points per game. Relatively similar offenses. The Chiefs have got a slight nod in terms of points per game. I would say if you keep the Chiefs to 24 points or less, the Denver Broncos have got a fighting chance of winning this football game. I don't think the Broncos are going to win this game, but it's going to come down to how well can you control a middling Kansas City Chiefs offense. Sounds crazy to say. This has been borderline too disrespectful in the way I'm talking about this Chiefs offense, because I'm just waiting for them to explode. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL, and I would imagine that they're going to get this thing going. 25 points per game is something that the Broncos could only dream of. For the Chiefs, it's a down year. I would love for the Broncos to be averaging 25 points per game. Overall, the offenses between the Broncos and the Chiefs, the Denver Broncos have got the 25th ranked offense in the NFL. So they are struggling big time on the offensive side of the ball. And this quote unquote struggling Kansas City Chiefs offense is still the 10th best offense in the league. So let's not get too disrespectful when we're talking about this Chiefs offense. They've certainly got the capability of beating you at any given time. All right. Will the Broncos win this game? I don't know, but it would be huge. I'll say this. If the Broncos do win this game, take it to the bank. The Denver Broncos are going to the playoffs. There are a handful of games left on the roster, left on the schedule for the Denver Broncos that are very favorable. The schedule gods favored the Denver Broncos this season. All the teams the Broncos have beaten have got a 500 or less record, and the teams that they've lost to are all in the playoff chase. Fortunately for the Broncos, you've got some bad teams still left on the schedule. You've got the Browns, you've got the Raiders, you've got the Colts, you've got the Chargers. Chargers are not a bad football team, but they're not a great football team either. So if the Broncos lose this game against the Chiefs, there's definitely still a path to the playoffs, but it's going to require near perfection if they don't win it. I've always said that if the Broncos wanted to make the playoffs, they had to win one of the two games between the Ravens and the Chiefs. And I stand by that because I don't think that this Broncos team is good enough to win all of the games that we expect them to win. Although I've got a handful of games left that are very winnable, the Broncos might very well drop one of those games. And if they drop one of those games, well, now you got to find a game or two to make up for it. If you drop this game against Kansas City, next week's game against Atlanta is do or die time. Atlanta's a good football team, so I don't want that kind of pressure for this Denver Broncos team going into that Atlanta game. You could very easily lose to Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is balling. He's thrown for the second most passing yards in the NFL. Atlanta's got a very solid offense, and they've got a great head coach, and they've got a lot of mojo right now. So although I do think that the Falcons is a quote-unquote winnable football game, I don't want to count on it. So really, really would be nice for the Denver Broncos if they could pull off an upset here against the Kansas City Chiefs. Fortunately, the Broncos do play the Chiefs in Week 17. So if all else goes to hell in a handbasket, the Broncos need to find 4 wins going into the final game of the season. And then at that point, you actually want to cross your fingers, hope and pray that the Chiefs have actually got the number 1 seed locked up. Because if they've got the number 1 seed locked up, perhaps the Chiefs won't play their starters, and perhaps the Broncos could find that 5th win in Week 17. It used to be when I was playing, 9 wins would more than likely get you into the playoffs. Now in a 17-game season, I would say you need 10 wins. 9 wins might get you in. It might not. 10 wins in all likelihood will get you into the playoffs. So the Broncos got to find 5 wins. It's as simple as that. They've got about half the season to go, and they got to win 5 football games. And it starts this weekend against a very tough opponent in field conditions that probably are going to be bad because of that University of Kansas football game. And I'm actually hoping that the field conditions kind of neutralize the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, although are not as dynamic as years past, have still got a lot of weapons. And bad field conditions tend to favor the underdog. So let's cross our fingers. Let's hope and pray the Denver Broncos can go out to Kansas City and get a very tough win. And the Denver Broncos would be in the driver's seat in terms of the playoff hunt. Appreciate you guys watching. We will have a live watch along tomorrow for the game. Until then, Mount Polumbus is out.